Let's build a Candela character. And there's the opening crack. It is time for another episode of Bards and Barrels. I'm Ross Druce, along with me for the ride today. Phil, how's it going?
That felt great, Ross.
I'm super excited for this. This is part 4 of our 10-part deep dive into Darrington Press's horror system, Candela Obscura. So far in this little section, we've really talked about character building, and then we got into like actually showing you how a character is built, where we did like a screen grab of like us going through the entire process. And today it is time for the podcast part where we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the minutia in character building. Is that how you would say that, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is important for us to maybe still kind of walk through the process a little bit in case someone doesn't want to watch the actual like screen scrape video or screen walkthrough video, just so everyone kind of knows what that process looks like. That makes sense to kick us off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So if we kind of revisit that process a little bit, right? I think it's a 7-step-ish style of character creation. And it starts with, the basis of your character. So we're going to start with a role and a specialty. When I think of this like through the D&D lens, right, that most of the time we kind of approach this through, this would be like picking a class. And then in essence, when your class hits that level milestone where you're picking like maybe a path or a circle, right, that's going to be your specialty.
Sure.
So that's the first component in this. From there, once you've determined what your role and your specialty are going to be, then it's your action ratings. So this, in essence, would be similar to assigning your stats in D&D.
Sure.
Your skill points.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing to really realize is that there's no dice rolling involved in the character creation in Candela Obscura. So if you're moving from D&D or really most systems to over here, it's going to be kind of unusual. And honestly, like at first I thought it was really weird because like I want to like roll stats.
Sure.
I want there to be a little bit of fate in this.
Yeah.
But the more we've done it, like playing and then doing it for this series, I really feel like there's something really nice about it though, to where like you're telling me where to put these things. It still gives you a little bit of leeway. So it's like there's specific things that you're assigning because of your role. And then typically, depending on what type of role that you have or whatever you're building, it's going to give you like 3 action points that you can assign wherever you want.
Sure. Gives you a little bit of freedom to kind of cast that flavor, right, in your distribution of your points. But your base character, right, in general has your role, your specialty. There's things you're good at.
Totally.
Right? Intentionally, right? That is the goal of your character. Once we've got our action ratings determined, then we're headed to determine our drives, which once again are basically kind of some of it's predetermined based on what your role specialty are, and then you have some freedom there once again to continue to flavor your character. So, hey, where does it make the most sense to have drives? Probably somewhere where I have some action ratings, so that way I could, use my drives to perform those actions.
And really in Candela, probably even more than D&D, like the character creation process is very collaborative. So we'll talk about a little bit about this when we talk about optimizing your character or the inability to optimize your character in Candela. But part of that process is you're likely building your character with your fellow players. That's the whole point of this. And so where you lack, other people could make up. So it's like your instinct is going to be, I want to spread this out and I want to be at least a little bit good at something. But at the end of the day, probably not.
No. And so Ross and I we've been through this process a couple times, and we've been moving some characters from D&D into Candela to play. And part of that was, okay, well, we're not going to round these characters out. Like this character would play this way, and then the party kind of offsets that. There's still some gaps, I feel like, to be truthful, but I think that that's going to play appropriately and make a more fun like group storytelling experience.
Totally. I agree 100%.
Once we've got those drives in there, next up are our resistances. So we just go in and we fill those out based on what our basically where our drive points are, right? Mm-hmm. So every 3 drive you have, you get to fill out a resistance. So you go in and fill those out. Then we get to guild some actions. So you'll guild 1 based on what your role is, or your specialty, and then your second one you actually get to pick. So it does make sense to probably guild an action where you have some drive, so that way you could regain your drive.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit in, I think, both the introduction to character
Probably.
building and when we were actually building a character, where drive is probably the mechanic that, or not drive, but gilding is the mechanic that's going to be kind of confusing to some people in a lot of ways.
It's because it in your mind you think of like, oh, you have a gilded dice, I should add a die, and that's not actually the way that it works. It's like, hey, no, I have 2 action points in there. I'm going to roll 2 dice. One of them is gilded. If I happen to choose that one as my roll, then I can gain a drive back.
Right.
It's not the actual addition of an extra die, and I think that's where it gets a little bit confusing.
Yep, 100%.
Once we've gilded our actions, then we're going to choose abilities. So they have role abilities and special abilities. And if you do go back and you kind of watch our character build process that we did on the screen, the pre-generated character sheets that they actually have available on Darrington Press's website have those options listed for you. So if you just print out one of their pre-generated character sheets, you can actually pick the items right off of there. It has the descriptions and everything, super easy to follow. And there's a lot of flavor, I feel like, too, in those abilities.
Yes.
Where you can really, you don't min-max characters in this game, right? But you definitely could say, oh, my occultist is going to be more of like a ritualist, right? Or they're going to be more of like this other style of a character.
Yeah.
And those really add to that.
I think the coolest thing about this, and this is just a general thought about D&D, is like there's so much involved in the character creation process in D&D that's like you get to a point where like, yep, I'll take that. And if you're a magic user in D&D, you're like, I really don't want to look through 50 spells right now to decide what I want.
Sure.
The nice thing about Candela, and that we created a weird character in that last episode, and it spells out those abilities so nicely. So you have special abilities, and then you have abilities that are part of your role. And so it's like it's 3 things. Like your first choice is 3 things, and they keep it pretty short, so it's very easy. But I feel like they intentionally did that to get you to read through that and really think, wow, how can I utilize this for my character?
And there's a blank character sheet in there too, right? So it's not like you are, just limited to what is listed there. Yep. But I mean, there's some pretty great options.
Yeah,
that's my personal opinion.
I mean, most of the things we looked through were excellent options. Yeah. So yeah,
I agree. So once we get your ability, or those aren't abilities, yeah, they are, your abilities locked in, then we're gonna head over, and we're actually going to fill in some character details.
Yeah.
So mainly flavor.
Right. So it's like, and I think the funny thing is when we were filling out the character sheet, we actually talked about something that you probably don't want to do, because at the top of that section is where your scars go, which we'll talk about here in a second. But we had discussed in that, like, maybe flavor wise, it would make sense for your character to take a scar. And I do still kind of stand behind that, because if you want to play like a veteran investigator, maybe you do have a scar. The key thing is knowing and 100% understanding that once you have 4 scars, your character has died. Yeah. And you're probably retiring with 3.
You should be.
So if you come in with 1, this character you may not be playing this character a long time. But going back to like the things you're filling in, this is going to be where like you're coming up with a name, you're talking about pronouns, you're talking about the reasons why you're part of Candela. Yep. These are things that you're just going to come up with, very narrative based things.
It is. I mean, if you think about it from the D&D lens, right, it's kind of backstory, but don't go right in the whole backstory, right?
Right.
Do this collaboratively. You do have a catalyst that Ross hit on, right? So like, why did you join Candela Obscura? What was the spark? And then the next is the question. So as your character is going out on assignment, as you're working through a campaign potentially, what question are you hoping to answer for your character?
And I think that's kind of, again, going back to like the ease of character building in Candela, like just when we were talking about assigning drive and things like that, and action points and stuff like that, it's like they kind of spell that out for you. You put it here, right? And so that was super nice. And then, but even when you get to like background, think about background in D&D. Like, it's very daunting for new players to be like, God, I don't know what to put for background. I just want to play the game. Like, how do I get by that? Whereas in Candela, it's specific questions.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, this is your background, but it's like, all I really want to know is, why are you here?
Yes.
And exactly. Why are you a part of this? And what are you getting from it? If you can tell me that, that's essentially your background in Candela.
When I was thinking we're 7 steps, is because I forget about the 8th, because it's really the group part of the process, right? It's forming relationships. So you've done all this work on your character. ideally with the rest of your party. But at that same time, now it's like, okay, well, individually, right? Like person to person within your circle, what relationship do you have?
Hmm.
And who literally go around the table, right, and be like, "Oh, hey, my character and your character are what? Are we just coworkers? Are we workplace rivals? Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is your character a bully, or one of the characters be a bully? That's one of the options they
Yeah.
actually list in the book. So,
And this is really replacing that you meet in a tavern trope.
yeah, oh yeah,
And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. And your players in Candela could still be meeting in a tavern to figure this out. And they just know each other. And they're very, it's like a level 1 D&D character. I really don't know why my D&D characters ever got into the positions they were. Was it complete happenstance that they happened to walk into a tavern and then here's somebody needing help and you're the person, like you're going to be the one to help me, and here we go, we're off to become heroes of the realm. In Candela, I love the fact that it's intentional, that before you ever play a minute, before you go out on an assignment, before, I mean, really in a lot of ways, before you're an investigator, why do you know each other?
yeah.
Like, are you friends, rivals? Bully is an option that you can explore. Like, there's lots of different
Soulmates,
things.
lovers.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the book has a whole bunch of different options,
Yeah.
and you can make up your own too, right? But it has a plethora of options you choose from.
Totally.
I think once you finish forming your relationships, the character creation part is done, right? And then from there, we're still meeting as a group, and we're going to go ahead and create our circle, right? That's going to be the next component of the process.
Yeah, and this is a place where very few D&D groups, I feel like, maybe there's more out there that name their groups, but immediately I think of like Vox Machina, and most groups just don't name their party effectively.
Right.
We've been playing a D&D campaign, started as a pre-written novel. It's now in Homebrew World. That's also going to be playing some Candela Obscura. We've been playing that for 4 years.
Yes.
And we do not have a name for our party. There probably should
about
be
to.
a name for our party.
We're about to. We're going to have to make one.
Yeah, I think we need one.
Yeah.
But this is something, before we move on to circle creation really quick. I think these are like little pieces where, like, if you're not ready to dive into Candela, that you can take back to D&D. You know, if you're starting new, you know, it would help with shared background and understanding to have your characters know each other. This is not something that's explicitly spelled out in any D&D book, but you know, if they know each other, that's fantastic. If you have a name for your group and you have all of that coming in, it feels like it flows better narratively.
I mean, it almost changes your lens of D&D, right? Like, you are approaching D&D as a group storytelling game, which is what it's designed to be as well.
Yep.
Instead of just, hey, everybody showed up to a help wanted ad.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I
That's
mean,
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about circle creation a little bit.
So circle creation, you start out by answering a couple questions just like about your circle, but I call that the boring part of circle creation. It's not really, right? But the fun parts of circle creation, like Ross already hit on naming your circle. In Candela, names have power, right? So your name should have some kind of a significance. So whether it's is it related to maybe like the first phenomena that you guys faced, or maybe a shared tragedy that the group has, or even like a political event or something that maybe happened in the area.
Sure.
So something that is going to give it purpose.
Yeah, and I love that. And it goes back to, and we've talked about this throughout all of these parts so far about Candela Obscura, is like it leans heavily into make things matter. It's like nothing you're going to decide is arbitrary, right? It all connects back somewhere. So names having meaning, even the name of your group, there's a reason for that. And once you have that, how do you play that in the assignment while you're out investigating?
And your name even could tie into your like chapter house location. That's the next part, is you actually, what does your chapter house look like for your circle, and where is it located? Like, is it in a speakeasy hidden behind one of the pubs, or is your lightkeeper literally in a lighthouse, right? And that is your chapter house. What does that look like? And I think that's a cool part and offers like a ton of room for embellishment.
Totally. And I think D&D started to lean into that when they introduced bastions.
Yeah.
But even bastions, so it's like your chapter house is where you come together to meet.
Yes.
So it's like when you're out and about and you get the call from your lightkeeper, somebody knocks on your door and says, well, Candela requests your presence or your assistance. You go to your chapter house. Like, everybody has that place where they meet. Bastions in D&D were built in a lot of ways for a player to have a home, not a party to have a home. Now, your party could absolutely use one bastion, but really, when you read the rules behind it, it's meant for a player to do that. Now, my guess would be if you tried a bastion out there, you probably did it as a party. But again, Candela's doing this very intentionally because they want this to be the gathering place for your group.
This is like in DCC where they can link their personal spaces together.
Oh yeah. For their guilds, their guild halls. Yeah, absolutely.
I always picture like in my mind like a Masonic temple as like a guild house potentially. I feel like it would be a cool place, but
boy, hashtag real life example.
Once you've got your house location picked, then you have some circle abilities that you can choose. So, your group, right, as a whole has its own set of like boons and things that you can earn as you get further on into the game. So as you complete assignments, right, you level up as a character, but your circle also levels up, which gives you access to more resources.
Right. And I really love that feature. That's the fact that, is if you're going to be a team and play as a team, then here are some bonuses for being that team and completing tasks and doing things like that. And I think it behooves you to act that way in the game. Again, going back to how intentional Darrington Press was when they wrote this TTRPG.
Yeah.
So.
And then your last step in there is to actually assign your resource points. So, hey, where are we going to put points into? Stitch, refresh, or train. And those are ways that you, in essence, can heal up or get better at skills or things, recover drives during... drives and resistances. I was thinking resistances, but drives and resistances between assignments, right? So, hey, how am I actually going to refresh some of this stuff? Because there is no such thing, right, as a true, like, long rest.
Right,
in Candela.
Yes, in this game.
So it works a little bit differently, but that's achieved through your circle.
Honest to God, if we, for you Dungeon Crawler Carl fans out there, if we ever get a chance to talk to Matt Denneman, we need to ask him if the idea behind the guild halls was possibly influenced by Candela. Because it feels like, as you're describing that, it feels very similar. Like it's a place for you to train and restore yourself, which is and
I'm trying to remember what year he wrote that book.
Oh, did he
predate Candela?
Was it or was it not?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know, but it just seems ironically close right now as we talk about this. So anyway, shout out to all the Dungeon Crawler Carl fans out there. Love you guys. So the next thing we want to talk about here is not really necessarily, and we've hit it a little bit, is not necessarily part of the character creation, but it's going back and talking about scars a little bit. And scars are one of those mechanics that really show like the physical manifestation of you almost dying, more or less.
Correct.
And eventually you get so many scars, you die. You get so many scars, you could retire. But I think the thing, and we've talked about this before, Phil, is like, you take so many bleed, you dropped in this assignment, you didn't die because you don't have that many scars. But now, because you have taken a scar, like, how does that manifest for you as a character is what we're talking about here.
Sure. And so there's a mechanical change, right? But then more so than that too, like there is a change in how you play that character. Mm-hmm. So sure, let's say you got your 4th mark in body, right? So then you take a body scar. So in the body section of my character sheet, I'm going to have to erase one of my ability points, and I need to move it somewhere else that would make sense for what happened. Yep. So maybe I'm erasing one out of probably, let's say, move. Maybe I injured a foot or something, right? So I'm going to be a little bit slower.
Yep.
So I'm going to take one out of move, but because I'm slower, maybe I'm more perceptive, right?
Yep,
or something along those lines. So I'd have to look at, where I should drop that point in, but I feel like it would make sense that, I'm paying much more attention to my surroundings now because I'm not as fast to get out of there.
Yeah, I love that. And so here's the cool thing about this. I think this is another opportunity where if you're not ready to dive into Candela and play Candela, this could be something you take back to your D&D game. This would be very easy to adapt. Like if you drop down to 0 HP and have to be revived, maybe at your table you roll a table, or maybe you have multiple tables depending on how you go.
How many death saves you failed?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. Yes, and it becomes more. Oh my gosh, It becomes more and more intense the more you fail. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, me too.
But then you roll whatever that would be for your character. They now have this thing, but then kind of like in Candela, where it's like, if you're slower, but now you're more perceptive, you could still do something like that in D&D. So it's like, you're not able to do this, so your walking speed drops, but I'm going to give you a +1 to your perception or something.
It is interesting though, because I like in D&D, there are certain monsters that you'll come up against that have the ability to like leech off your constitution, right? Or leech
Sure,
off of
yeah.
different skills. But we've never talked about that in the aspect of like going down.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it would
Oh,
totally
absolutely.
make sense.
Yeah. Gosh, though. We don't do that, but we may be doing
We're
that
probably gonna
here,
start doing
here
that.
very soon. So one of the last things here we want to talk about is players coming from D&D. So you're actually getting into Candela Obscura, you're creating characters. Those people out there who are struggling to optimize their character. And honestly, Phil, I think the best advice for somebody who's struggling to optimize their character is quit trying to optimize your
I
character.
was gonna say stop.
Yeah, literally, that is the first thing you should do.
It's not designed to be that. It just isn't, right? You're playing a perfectly imperfect character, and that's how they're supposed to be played, with room to change. Because if you do take a scar, right, you're not going to be playing that character the same way you did originally. And you're, as a group, right, you have a common goal. You are a small piece of that. Yeah. So you don't have to be the hero, right, of the group or of the realm, right? You're just on the front lines doing the best you can.
Yeah, I think how you just talked about being the hero is a good illustration of that. So when you're thinking of like min-maxing in D&D, you're trying to create that perfect Thor-esque character that is the hero in D&D. But whereas in Candela, you are literally a flawed human being, like most people are in real life. You're not perfect at everything. And because of that, it lends itself really well to the narrative focus of Candela Obscura.
I think about it too, right? Your goal is not to become the best character that you can. Your goal is to answer your question.
Yeah.
Whatever it was that you wrote, right? And continue to help, stop phenomenon or bleed from leaking into the world, right, as best you can. But your goal personally as a character is to answer your question.
I think we talked about it in the podcast, the introduction podcast, which would have been episode 2 or part 2 that we did, where we talked about how most investigators in Candela do what they do in anonymity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so you don't need to be perfect, because it's not like you're a very visible type of character here.
If anything, you probably don't want to draw a lot of attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. So. Yeah. Okay, Phil, what are your final thoughts just generally on character creation?
I enjoy this character creation process. I feel like creatively it really gets me kind of in a good spot where I'm not into that, well, hey, this role wasn't the greatest. Where am I going to put that dump stat? I don't really have to worry about that. This is much more like, ooh, okay. Do I want to play like a soldier character? So obviously I'm going to be, probably pretty good in the move area, but where are my shortcomings going to be? Right. And just kind of like thinking through the components of how to build out the character that I want to play. And even, I know they're called roles, but thinking through like, okay, what is my character's role in the circle? And it may change like based on what other people are playing too.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. I love that.
I think back to the very first time I built a D&D character and how daunting and intimidating it was to create a character. And given I approached Candela after having played D&D, so it's like the whole thing was a little less intimidating than the very first time you pick up any TTRPG. But I like the simplicity of it. Like character creation is not a barrier to playing the game here. No. It's like you're still able to kind of build what you want to build while adding the simplicity of not having to roll dice. It really guiding you through the process and keeping your choices relatively minimal. Something we didn't mention was that equipment, you don't really pick equipment for your character until you go out on assignment. Whereas in D&D, like you have all of these starting equipment things that you kind of have to shuffle through right from the get-go before you've ever even started an adventure to try to decide what you need, because who knows when you're going to get to shop for more. Whereas in Candela, it's like, well, what do you need for this thing? Which is really cool too, because that's kind of like, oh, here's your mission. What do you need to, it's like a Q James Bond type thing. It's like, what do you need to accomplish your goal in this one? So yeah, I think that's really cool. So I love the character creation process here. Don't get me wrong. I still love the character creation process in D&D too. It's fantastic. But I can see where particularly for a new player, where this would be very appealing.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's time not consuming.
Yeah,
timely.
I would agree with that.
Timely.
Like I said, it's a non-barrier for getting into the game.
Yes.
Like if it was long and convoluted, nobody's going to want to do it. Why take the time to do it?
Right.
Kind of thing. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Bards and Barrels. We'll be back next week for the next part where we dive a little deeper into some other things Candela Obscura. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on our social media channels, Facebook, Threads, Instagram, at Bards and Barrels. Until next time, may your dice be hot and your beer be cold.